Hey, what's up, everybody? It's rock and roll comedian Don Jamieson. Don't forget to pick up my new stand up album, No Sleep Till McSorley's. Debuted at #1 on the charts, folks. Have a few laughs, but especially make sure you listen and watch every day to John the Ninja.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja live in the Dojo studio. See, you know what the G is, and Jersey pride in the house, and not just because I'm wearing this shirt. Man, I am so psyched to speak to this gentleman again. What a wonderful person. What a wonderful example he is of just doing what you love and you're gonna make it. But let me actually read you what I wrote down other than that. His favorite expression is jump and it will appear. Talking with his good friend Lemmy, he literally took what Lemmy said to heart when he says, if you don't quit, they can't stop you. And let me tell you what that actually equates to this gentleman. And me for HBO's Inside the NFL, a best-selling book. He's an actor. He's a movie producer. Actually produced Pauly Shore is Dead. He has 5 comedy records, 4 of which have hit the top 20 on iTunes and top 10 on Billboard comedy charts. The 5th one just released April 19th, No Sleep Til McSorley's. But the gentleman is doing exceptionally well, especially starting his career at 29. He has worked for VH1 Classics, HBO, Comedy Central, writing roasts, President Trump. You know, we're going to give him some, props for what he said. It was still funny. But having shows with That Metal Show and working with his friend Eddie Trunk and Jim Florentine, he's not only interviewed Hall of Famers for both sports and rock and roll, but he's inspired a generation of young metalheads to fall into the genre. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Don Jamieson. He's coming to the Side Splitters Comedy Club May 3 and 4, and he's here to promote, once again, I say it, go buy it, pre-order. Actually, it's out now. No Sleep Til McSorley's. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Jamieson. Sir, how are you?
Wow, who is this guy you speak of? He sounds cool. It's funny to hear all that stuff, and thank you for the unbelievable intro. Yeah, and thank you for representing Jersey with that Patriarchs in Black shirt. But yeah, man, it's been a crazy career, but the best thing about any career is longevity, right? That's the thing, is I'm not a household name. You said all those great things, which I appreciate, but then half the people are going, who? And that's okay, because after 24 years of doing this, I'm still making fans. There's still people who are discovering me, and that's a good thing. And like you mentioned at the top of the show, I've been able to make a career out of all the things that I love. So, as far as any kind of measure of success for me, that's the ultimate.
It adds another layer. Speaking of which, you were just at Armor Saints show last night in Jersey with Queensryche. I got an interview with John tomorrow, so I was curious, how did you enjoy the show, man? Because it's the coolest thing about being in Jersey is you can randomly, especially you, will randomly show up and you're like, is that who I think it is? Oh my God, Don! So how was the show for you? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I love it. I've been a fan of both bands for 30 plus years. I'm label mates with Armored Saint because I do my comedy albums on Metal Blade. So those guys, are real good friends. And it's a great double bill. I mean, if you know both these bands, or even if you don't, if you like one or the other, go check out this tour. It really is amazing. Queensryche celebrating, the early years of the band with the new singer, which is like 12 years now, Todd, who's just killing it, on the old stuff. And Armored Saint, who, in Jersey last night, they had about this much room on stage because, while it's a pretty decent sized stage, Queensryche has their big setup and everything. But they don't let it get in the way of them getting up there and giving 100%. And, they sounded like they were playing in an arena. So love both bands. Jersey showed up on a Tuesday. I don't know if it was sold out, but it was packed. And so, yeah, it was a great time.
Something I really thought was cool when I first actually got to meet you was you kind of pulled the Chuck Berry route. You show up in your car, you're no gear, nobody with you, at least from the events I've been with you at. And you come in, you do the deed, and then you go. And you're in and out, and I was curious on the business side of things, how you conduct. I was not able to ascertain what your degree was in. So I was curious what the degree was in and if that helped you along the line with your business, or if it's more so, I've been around all these great people in the music business, in the comedy business. I kind of picked up different details and lessons along the way.
Well, first of all, I got to correct one of the things you said at the top. My favorite expression is jump and the net will appear. You missed the part about the net, and that's very important because that ties into, again, what we said at the top, which is, I had to make a decision. Do I want to jump in and try to make a career at the things I love, or should I take the safe route? And so jump and the net will appear is my favorite saying, because you know what, if you go for it, if you take the risk and you bust your ass, things will work out. The net will appear. You will not fall to your death from the tightrope. So that's that. To answer this question, I'm like Chuck Berry. Just put the money in a paper bag. I'll come in, I'll do my thing, and then I'll take the paper bag and get out. But for me, it's more of a sandwich bag. I'm not making Chuck Berry money, but no, you know what? College was great. I'm glad I went. Obviously, I didn't formally use it for anything, but I played a lot of pranks in college. So I don't know, maybe that helped me. I did radio in college, so that kind of got me used to, being an on-air personality and stuff, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do after that. But business is just music and comedy. It's tough. You got to have a thick skin, man. That's all I can say.
And specifically, what was the degree name?
I had a bachelor in communication. When I went to school, we didn't have it's great now. People in college, if they're studying communication or journalism, whatever, they have their own little TV studios and obviously all the current technology, production facilities, editing. I mean, you could really learn a wide range of things, almost like going to a trade school, but in a college. And we didn't really have that. We just read a lot of books about theory and things like that. And while I enjoyed it, I just knew somewhere along the way I wanted to be in the performing end of things. That's why I got onto the college radio station, and then eventually made my way onto TV, and have pretty much dabbled in almost everything since then.
I do really want to stress this, how grateful I am to how you treated me the first time we met. We were backstage. God bless Quiet Riot. That whole band had me back there, and I was just chilling. I'm fanning out. I don't want to be too much. I don't want to be in the way. I'm just thankful to be at the show. And you're back there, and you went out of your way to say hello. And as a fan of you, and it just growing up watching the show, and like I said, all the lore, it was warming my heart. Like you said, you've been in this business for so long, you haven't really met any dicks. Everyone's been cool. So I wanted to know who's also done that for you. You were backstage with the guys, you were just, minding your business, and somebody you really idolized walked up to you and was like, hey man, how you doing? I seen your show. I love you guys. What's an experience you had like that?
And well, again, thanks for the good words, but that's just my personality. If I'm standing next to somebody, especially at a concert, and we're standing next to one another and we're enjoying the show, I'm going to say something, God forbid you make a friend. God forbid you're not looking into your phone the entire show, or filming the whole damn thing. Then I probably wouldn't have talked to you. But here's a small example. Last night, Queensryche and Armored Saint. I'd never really met Casey Grillo, who's now officially Queensryche's drummer for a few years. And we've been in the same room together. We've been sort of in the same group together, but we never sort of said hello and introduced ourselves. And, he walked out before the show and he saw me. He goes, hey, Don, I thought you might be here. I know you live in Jersey and everything. And then it was just cool that he did that, and I really appreciated that, because I had always wanted to meet him. And, turns out he's a great guy. But, the times that really affected me was when we were doing that metal show. And, when we started, we didn't know if we were reaching anybody. We didn't know if anyone was watching. We had no idea. We didn't know if we were helping bands or we were hurting them. We didn't really know. And when I was at the Big Four in Indio, California, I was backstage, and James Hetfield walks up to me and he puts his hand out and he goes, hey, I hope you know how much your TV show means to our scene. And as I'm sure you know, James is a man of few words. So when he goes out of his way to say something, it means something. So yeah, that was a time that completely blew me away because he wasn't, I wasn't pestering him, and he was just trying to say something to say something. He seeked me out to say it. So I'll never forget that. That meant so much to me.
And those little things, even if you don't get to talk to them, those little acknowledgments. Speaking of Metallica, I think I saw Chuck of Testament at the show, and I walked by and I saw him. I was like, "Oh my God!" And he was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Thank you," and go about your business. But something that I'm a pester you about this again because we talked about this the first time. I know you're a collector. You got your Les Paul. I can't remember. I think it's an 84. I don't know if it's a Silver Burst, but I think it's an 84. But you got your Les Paul. You got your vinyl collection, man. But you had a band. You played growing up, and it blows my mind that you don't really put yourself out there and say like, yeah, man, I can play, but I leave it to the professionals. I'm like, even if you're the worst player in the world, I would still want to be on stage with Metallica. Just turn the volume down. I only need a wire, So what are you able to at least have moments that maybe the public doesn't know about where you actually got to jam with some of your favorite artists, or at least like had offers for charity? Because like I think of Bill Burr and some of the other guys that do those AC/DC tributes, and I'm like, we need to get down the guitar and get him on stage. I know he knows how to play the 3 chords. So what is your stance on that? Have you had that opportunity and you just haven't told anybody?
You're exactly right. I do know the 3 chords. So, if someone wants me to come up and jam an AC/DC song, I'm definitely happy to do it. I just did it on the Monsters of Rock cruise. It was myself and again from Armored Saint, Phil Sandoval was playing. Was the other guitarist, and Phil Schaus was playing bass, who plays in Accept. And so we had this little all-star band on the Monsters of Rock cruise. And yeah, I got up and played Dirty Deeds. And that was super fun. Phil's brother Gonzo, who's the drummer in Armored Saint, took a bunch of great photos. He's an awesome photographer as well as a tremendous drummer, and he was kind enough to send them to me. So I did post them on my page. And last summer when the Party Gras came through New Jersey, Bret Michaels, big summer show. I'm hanging backstage and I'm hanging with Brad Gillis and Mark McGrath, and they go, "Hey, everybody comes out the end and does Sweet Home Alabama. That's the big ending thing. Everybody from all the bands goes out." And I go, "What am I going to do? I got, I don't really sing. I don't have a guitar." And just as I said that, one of Brett's guitar players, Dean, took his guitar off, threw it around my neck, and just pushed me out. And Brad's like grabbing me by the arm. And I'm like, "What key is it in?" And he's like, "Whatever, A." And I turn around to Dean, and I go, like you said, that's exactly what I did. I said, "Turn me down." And I just went out there and I winged it. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, once in a while, I'll get up and do that. But the truth is, man, I get more enjoyment watching the people who do it well do it.
I never thought of it like that. I love the facets of seeing them play and then playing with them, or even playing at home. Like it's a different level. But man, I want to tell you, people, he's always humble about it. He never really wants to talk about it. So thank you for putting it out there here, because it was hard pressed. I was like, "You don't play it all?" I was like, "Nah, leave it to the professionals." "Yeah, sure." So
I do, that's why I went into comedy, because I peaked, as a musician in terms of my passion for playing an instrument, but my passion for music has only increased with age. So I do, but yeah, it's once in a while to get up, and if the couple songs I really know well, I feel good about going up and doing. I don't want to blow up anybody's spot.
you're a better man than me. I'll be on stage screaming. This is my one shot and I'm taking it. But something I really did, it thoroughly made me happy to see, was you are well read. And it's not just the autobiographies of these rock stars that we love. You are actually a Shakespeare reader. You're an autobiography. You are a guy that actually can dive into those 300 plus books and knock them out. I was curious, when did your love for reading actually start?
I think my mom said I was reading at like 2. So, it's been my whole life, and that's something I get such a passion out of, but for people who don't read, I don't know if they don't know what they're missing, so it's hard to miss something that you don't know the feeling of, but I do. The my mind doesn't work mechanically. My mind works creatively. So for me, when I'm reading a book, I'm visualizing it, especially if the author's good. But even with rock biographies, like I just read Desmond Child's book. I just finished that literally yesterday. And I mean, the stories about his songwriting and stuff are amazing, but even the stories about him growing up in Cuba and not knowing his father, and his mother's struggles and the poverty, and yeah, I could see all that stuff. I mean, he really put it in such a visual way. So yeah, that's why I love reading, man. It's the same as song lyrics, right? Like I, when I interview people, I never ask them what are these lyrics about. It doesn't matter. It's what they mean to you when you're listening. They can always apply to whatever anybody's situation is. So it's the same with reading. Like you and I could read the same book and picture things a completely different way, but get the same experience. Well, I'm getting too deep here, man. Come on.
No, because everything you're saying is striking such a chord. I can just, as you're mentioning, I remember certain stories from like reading Iommi's book and Clapton's book, and it's so cool to. There's always something you can pull from them, and like you said, you see it as you're reading it. So it's just, I was in agreement. I was like, damn, he's spot on with this. He's actually killing it. So let's hit to where the bread and butter combine. Comedy. And, at the time you were just hanging out with Jim Florentine, another podcast guest. Shout out to the big man. And, I was thinking this because I've done open mics before, but, basically you saw a guy bomb and get paid. And you're like, that's a good idea. So you started hopping into it, but, you already had a preconceived notion of what comedy should have been, being a fan, growing up listening to Carlin and Pryor. And these are like the heaviest of the hitters, the greats. And when you start out, you might have the issue of comparing yourself to them. So could you walk me through, after the first couple of times you actually did your stand-up, you actually were like, okay, I'm going to commit to this, how you started to form your style before Brian came in and said, add the rock into it? Because the fact you said, I wanted to be clean and get on like Jimmy Kimmel, not Jimmy Kimmel, I know at different times, but wanted to be on the networks. It was kind of interesting to me to see you go backwards. A lot of the comedians I meet that do clean started off bad, went clean. You kind of did the reverse, and it got you to success.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a nightclub comic. I mean, that's the core of what I do. Obviously, I can work. I just worked clean at a casino the other night. I can do it, but and I love to go out and open for bands. So, and that's a totally different kind of situation. So, I like to be able to do all of them. But no, I didn't make the mistake, Ninja, of comparing myself to the greats when I started. I did compare myself to a guy I watched bomb. Literally, I went with Florentine to a gig, watch a guy, like complete silence, like you could hear the ice melting in the glass, kind of silence. And he got off stage with not a care in the world, went and got paid, and went to the strip club next door. And I was like, I could be that bad, So I compared myself to the worst comic, and then figured if I could just be a little better than him, I might have something here. And then, later, when I started to make a living at it, and I would, watch, live at the Sunset Strip, Richard Pryor, or listen to, George Carlin, A Place for My Stuff. Those things, as much joy I get out of them, like I get depressed as well, because I'm like, I'll never be in their league. If I do this for 1,000 years, I'll never be as good as them. But that's okay, because they are a once in a generation kind of talent. Those guys, they were truly special. So as a comic, you could never, like you said, you tried open mics, and you never know. Maybe there'll be something you'll want to do, but you can never predict where it's going to go. And for me, where it went was where it was supposed to go, which was combining the world of rock and the world of comedy, and also sports in there too, because I've done a lot of stuff with sports. So I was never really cut out for the late night shows or SNL or any of those kind of things. It just wasn't the right fit. But what I was the right fit for were the things that have happened.
Speaking to a comedian in Philly, he told me there's two things that happen. I don't know if this is true, because like I said, he said he's been doing it for 20 years. It could have just been some random guy that showed up night one. But he did kill that night. He said either you have that one first really funny joke, or you have that one person that says that was hilarious, my gut hurts, that really tells you like, okay, you know, I've kind of made it as a person that can do this, you know, maybe not so much professionally, but it kind of solidifies that thought in your mind, like, I'm a comedian, I got this. What was that like that for you? Because just the plethora of people you've worked with, especially touring with Andrew Dice Clay, he's the only comedian I've seen be able to recycle jokes every show and still get them to laugh and pop. So, you know, what was the moment you kind of had that, you know, like, damn, that was a great first, you know, really great set?
I think I'm still waiting for it. You know, that's why that's why we continue on with this, because you always, you know, it's like, you know, with my new record, you know, No Sleep Till McSorley's, you know, like a band, I truly think this is, you know, the best stuff I've ever done. And I'm like, wow, I've really found what you know, my niche now, you know, but I said that on the last record too. So it's just a journey, you know, I don't think that, do I get off stage and go, yes, I had a good set, or no, that wasn't such a good one? Yeah, all the time. But I don't go show by show. There was never one show where I go, wow, that, you know, now I know I have this, because you never do, you know. In comedy, trust me, dude, you could have 100 great sets in a row. There's always a crowd waiting around the corner to knock you down a few pegs. So they keep you hungry, man. It's true.
It's fun to see you guys enjoy the journey, you know, enjoy the struggle is best said. But let's hop over No Sleep Till McSorley's. It could not have been a better, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Look at how beautiful that is. The Motorhead, the vibe, him on stage singing. Actually, you know, telling the comedy jokes. But
Photoshopped, but yeah.
I'm not going to tell people that. That was live with Motorhead.
I wish I'd been on stage with Lemmy and Fast Eddie and Filthy and the Bomber there, but cool enough for them to let me actually use the Motorhead artwork. So real honor for me.
And just a quick synopsis for people that don't know. It all came together really quickly. I know it's a joke, you know, day drinking, you can get a lot done within an hour with an early start, but it really did seem like this was more of a fate thing, whether you're religious, whether or not, you know, it all came together. You hit up Motorhead's management, you asked McSorley's, you renegotiated the Metal Blade record deal, all that short time span, you know. I wanted to know when you first came to McSorley's, because that place been there since 1863. Abraham Lincoln drank there. You know, it's got so much history there, and for you to have been going there 30 consecutive years means something. So when was the first time you went? What was the vibe for you?
McSorley's is you know, they used to call bars and pubs social clubs back in the day, right? And there's a reason, because you were social with people. You sat at, you know, big wooden tables and you talked to people and you drank McSorley's ale. And, you know, again, you know, people at McSorley's to this day do not sit there like this the whole time. I mean, you ever go into a bar and there's nobody's talking. They're just all looking at their phones. And McSorley's is not that kind of place. So it became a meeting place for friends as we got older and people got, you know, moved away, you know, changed, you know, got into their careers, had, you know, had families and things like that, so that we never lost touch. So McSorley's was always the place, like, all right, once a month or so, we come back to McSorley's, you know, so we never lose touch, so our friendship doesn't just, you know, dissolve away. And all those people that I do that with all worked on this album with me and all helped me out. And you know, it's a place where you sit there in the, you know, in the afternoon or the evening and you solve the world's problems, which is kind of what I'm doing on this album, hopefully in a humorous way. And I said, this is the perfect setting. So, you know, when I asked them, you know, I said, how much to rent the place out for the night so I can record this album and special? And she said, how long you been coming here? I said, 30 years. And the owner said, you paid enough. So they let me have the place for nothing. And we had a great time.
That's so great. That's hard to hear nowadays. Like, you don't need something for something, you know. They basically said, you know what, you've been loyal to us, you can have it, man. It's wonderful to see that, being that New York City was where you cut your teeth in comedy. That's where you really harnessed your skills. Did you feel like it was more of a homecoming album for you? Did you feel a little bit more pressure because you had the Motorhead moniker behind you? What was your thinking? Because all the jokes were set already. They were all battle tested. So what was the vibe, the feeling coming out? You know, like, okay, we got to make sure this one hits.
obviously I could have done it in any of the comedy clubs in New York. But that would have been the easy choice, you know. So I was just happy that I was doing it in a different atmosphere. I'm not the most well-known comedian in the world. You know, I'm not the best comedian in the world, I'm not the worst comedian in the world. But what I like to do when I make an album or a special is incorporate the vibe of the room that I'm recording it in. So in other words, there's people are much funnier than me, and I see their specials or pieces of it, and it looks amazing and it sounds great. But they could have filmed it in Kansas City, Juneau, Alaska, Portland, Maine, Dallas, Texas. It wouldn't matter. I try to get the vibe of where I am. You know, I did an album in a speakeasy before, like literally an illegal club. I did an album, at my Jersey Shore club down here, a little BYOB place right off the beach, in the middle of the summertime, and I captured that vibe. So, that's a big part of it for me. So I kind of knew what to expect going in. It was going to be a bunch of beer drinkers and hellraisers.
And just want to throw out everybody else, Live and Hilarious, Hell Bent for Laughter, Communication Breakdown, Them and Laughter, check those out too. I'm just saying. But, to have that vibe, I understand what you mean. You really make it special, and you can hear it. Some of the jokes on there, I thought I was like, you know what? He said he doesn't want to preach, but they were so well written and tasteful, especially at the end, like the Black Sabbath. I'm trying not to give it all away, but the Black Sabbath joke, Phil Lynott, coming in there, I was just like, you know what? This is too. He knows what he's doing. Was there a joke, even though they're all battle tested, even though, you've reached out, not even reached out, the LGBT community came to you, transsexuals, all different types of people, Gen Z, older crowd, different ethnicities, they, basically given permission by saying this is a great joke for you to use. Was there a joke on the album you're kind of like, I don't know, this might be too much, but we're gonna do it anyway?
No, I mean, I did the jokes that got laughs for a couple of years before I recorded the album, and the jokes that didn't make it. That's all, But as I guess I'm sure you've heard me say in interviews, I want people to laugh. That's the bottom line. And so, if a joke doesn't get a laugh, I'm not that proud to say, well, I'm going to do it anyway. I want everybody to laugh. I take the worst beating of anybody on the album. So, if I can laugh at myself, so should everybody else. And look, you can't be overly concerned, because first of all, I'm not famous enough for anyone to want to cancel me. So that's good. But, but the other thing is, what's offensive to one person is not offensive to somebody else, and what's offensive today in 2 weeks might be totally offensive. I mean, we live in such an ever-changing world where it's 24 hours and it's over already. So, like I said, people pay to get to be entertained and to laugh, and every comic who's worth anything does it out of love. So that's where it comes from, and any comic who doesn't, well, the business takes care of that themselves. Those people don't stick around too long.
The one joke that killed me, because it's so funny, but I'm also kind of like, what were you thinking in the moment? So we're going to the Jefferson's apartment. You had a lovely evening with somebody. Again, no spoilers for people, but you made a decision to throw something out the window. And I'm like, there wasn't a trash can. There wasn't you didn't want to throw it out in the hallway or something. Just the chances of somebody getting hit by that thing, and it wasn't going to kill them, but it would have been definitely ruined their day, were just so astronomical. Could you take me back to what was happening in your mind during that particular date?
That whole thing is a true story. And so for people who are listening or watching this, I'll just give them a little gist of it, which is, I think every one of us, male or female, might have been with somebody at their place of residence, and maybe they had a little accident, in their, maybe things got a little messy in their underpants, and what do you do? And my thought was, I'll just throw it out right out the window, and it was the top of a skyscraper. So I didn't think it was going to hurt anybody. It wasn't like Morgan Wallen throwing a chair off the roof in Nashville. It was just a pair of underwear. But and that's not the worst thing on the streets of New York at any point in history. So I was just thinking, like, how do I not embarrass myself, more than I probably already had in front of this person. So yeah, fling it out the window and free ball it the rest of the night.
I hope you didn't nail somebody, bro.
But I was just, I hope I didn't either. But we were in the Jefferson building, and the Jeffersons were one of my favorite shows growing up. So for people want to, for people who want to hear the bit, you can hear it on the album. It's called The Jeffersons. So it's a 4-minute poop joke wrapped in an old TV sitcom theme.
But it's a good skit. It's a good one. I think of wrestling, and I know you've been compared to this before. Motorhead lent their sound to Triple H, and he at Lemmy's funeral said, like, there is nothing like coming out to a crowd. You're the man, and Lemmy's behind you singing. And I think about, like, the intro Phil Campbell did for you, and coming out. It's just, it's undescribable to me. So could you relay what you were thinking? Were you all business walking on stage, or did you kind of sit back, let the sound go, and kind of like get into that zone of like, okay, I can do this? Because you basically had the best gift Motorhead could give you, their sound.
Yeah, well, thank you. I agree. To break the fourth wall here, what you hear at the beginning of the album is Phil Campbell laying down a great guitar riff, but that gets put in the edit. When I came out dry, and then you kind of put that in the edit. You hear the crowd swell underneath it. I got my friend Sean, who plays Lemmy in a tribute band, who are amazing, called Head Motor. And Sean was cool enough to introduce me as Lemmy in lieu of the real thing. I put those all together in the edit. And yeah, I love the way that the album starts. For me, the album falls apart when I start talking. It's like the first minute and a half are my favorite part of the album.
We always have those conversations with somebody that we hold near and dear. Might be because they told us advice, maybe because it was just the time we were hanging out, and it was like, yo, that was such a good time. I missed them, or etc. What was a moment with the whole band? Do you remember when you were just like, you know what, life is good, and you cherish it now because it was such a pivotal moment with Motorhead?
With Motorhead, well, I mean, I was always, with Lemmy coming and doing that metal show, I just didn't want to do anything to piss him off, really, because Lemmy's my idol. So I didn't care if he knew me. I didn't care if he liked me. I just didn't want him to not like me. So, and I'm always professional, but around him, I didn't want to be annoying. I just didn't want to do anything for him to be like, oh, I'm gonna keep this guy away from me. And probably like the third time that he came and did that metal show, I was walking past his dressing room, and he's like, Don, come in here, sit down, have a drink. And that was my first Jack and Coke ever with Lemmy. And was lucky enough to have, a handful of Jack and Cokes with him after that time. But that time was special to me, man, because I'm like, I'm having a Jack and Coke with Lemmy. That's bucket list stuff for me. It's like everything after this is gravy. So that's the memory with him. As far as the band, I mean, just going to see them, I've probably seen them at least 40 times over the years. And being friends with Phil now and seeing him do well with, the band with his sons, Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. And I toured with them in England, and, they've been, I mean, there's no band that's been more part of my life than they have. I mean, them and Thin Lizzy really have been huge in my life.
Something you said, and I know I mentioned it earlier, you stated when you were first doing comedy that you struggled with storytelling. And like me watching your interviews, especially the one with you and Rob Halford to talk about his book, which was excellent, my man, wonderful work. Yeah. It especially even talking now back and forth, me and you, it was hard to conceive, like, this guy struggles to make the mental image of what was happening. Could you explain kind of how you were able to overcome that issue of not being able to storytell? If you had certain, like, you know what, when I write, I want to go back and make sure this happens so I can ensure that they're getting the mental picture.
I just made a decision to do some more storytelling. It was as simple as that, and but I knew it was going to be a long process. So I just, prepared myself for that. And but I mean, honestly, when you tell a story on stage, you still got kind of hit the same basic beats. I mean, you still have to get a laugh every 45 seconds or so, but you can stretch things out a little bit more when you tell a story. But I've always been, and I still am, very aggressive on stage. But I took the time to really try to figure out, like, what's people who are good storytellers in real life always fascinate me, because I can't wait to get to the end of a story. I'm like, even around my friends, I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Oh, and the horse had no legs. All right, now let me tell you what happened. So I went to this farm, that's how I've always been, just even in my regular life. And so when I started doing more stories, yeah, like the Jeffersons thing is a story. But again, you got to be conscious of still making sure you're getting laughs along the way. I'm not Richard Pryor. I can't go 3 minutes, and then just bring the gauntlet down with one, great, tagline at the end of it. Or Chappelle, in Chappelle's last special, he did that. He had this long story about going to meet Jim Carrey, and nobody sees the punchline coming. Cosby was amazing at that, but you got to get the laughs along the way, and then yes, hopefully at the end there's the big ta-da. You pull the rabbit out of the hat, and everybody goes home happy. So I'm glad I did that. You stretch the muscle a little bit more. I like to tell all kinds of jokes on stage. I like to tell stories. I like to tell silly jokes. I like to tell dirty jokes. I like to tell jokes that sometimes get a groan out of people. I like lots of different reactions. I like to put the silliest, cleanest joke in my act next to the dirtiest joke in my act, because it keeps people guessing. Like, no, wait a minute, you just told the clean joke, now you just told the disgustingly dirty one. And so you never know what's coming next, which if I'm watching, that's way more interesting to me.
I have to ask, with all the musicians you met, who was the one comedian you feel kind of gave you that feeling Lemmy gave you? That time Lars took you guys out for the town and you drank and just talked music. Who was that comedian that really was like, damn, Don, you the joint. Come with me, man. We gonna hang out. Was it still Dice? Was there another comedian? The fact that you've worked with almost everybody, especially on the Comedy Central roasts, helping people. Yeah. I hope you and Sebastian are doing good. It's something to be said, when your field recognizes your hard work.
Dice was really the one in such a major way as a performer, that, he thought enough of me to put me up in front of his crowds, and while they weren't, the arena crowds like they were in the late 80s and early 90s, they were still Dice crowds. Those, he would laugh at me because we'd play, theaters, and, it would be, a good 20-second walk out to the microphone after the introduction, but I never walked I ran to the mic, and he would always crack up, because he's got not a care in the world. He takes his time, he strolls out, he looks over here, he looks over there, he puts a cigarette in his mouth, he adjusts the stool, he takes a sip of water, and I'm like, and I go, dude, you don't have to open for you. I do. If I don't get to that microphone before someone yells out, "You effing suck," I'm dead. So that was it was like going to Comedy University opening for Dice, man. I knew if I could get his crowds on my side and pull out a good set, I could perform in front of anybody. And he liked me, which, and he's still one of my close friends to this day. So there's very few people who I really put on a certain pedestal, who said, without this person, I could not be doing this right now.
With metal, the bastard stepchild, we are overlooked as a genre. I love all music, I can't separate music from this or that. I have this love for music, but the thing that made metal fun was there was that aggression, there was that sense of like, we're a community, we're together in this. But in our field, like you said, you got to take it with a grain of salt, keep moving, take your lumps. What was a particularly, rough time, somebody or something, maybe it was a distributor, maybe it was maybe a channel that you were trying to get something through, they were like, we're not going to let it go, and you overcame that. And it wasn't necessarily shoving it in their face, but that was your win. You know, you went after what you wanted and you got it. You made a statement like that. You know, everything that was great in my career, I went after it, and you know, that's how I got it. So what was a moment like that that you're still proud of to this day?
Oh man, I mean, I think, ooh, yeah, I mean, that's where the blue collar thing comes in, you know, that I got from my dad, you know, which is like bust your ass, you know, every day that you go to work, bust your ass, and you know, certainly my work, it was not like his work, but yeah, that's where it comes from, and when the right thing came along, I was prepared for it. You know, I'd done like probably at least I had at least a dozen probably TV pilots before that metal show came along. You know, people think, oh, okay, you know, you went out one time and you did a pilot and you got that metal show. But no, there was a lot of failed ones before that that never aired anywhere. And it's like, wow, they're paying me to stay off of TV at this point. But they weren't the right thing, you know. And so when the VH1 thing happened, I was ready for it, and it was the right comment. You know, it was me and my two closest friends um, doing what we would be doing backstage at a show anyway, is sitting on some road cases, talking to musicians about music and whatever else came up, you know, sports or whatever. So, you know, I just think being able to my three loves of comedy, you know, rock, heavy music, sports, that's that I've done all those things, that I've made a career on those things, means more to me than anything. And I don't need to shove it in anyone's face. I'm doing everything I want to do.
And back to the guys, shout out to That Rocks, all three of the trio. You know, speaking to Jim, I was so impressed by just how when you first hear him, when you first talk to him, he's dry. You know, you can be like, wow, you know, I wonder how he's, but you just get this sense of care. And the fact that you guys have been together for so long, even before Eddie came into the scene, you know, I was curious how you view your friendship with him. You know, closest friend. You know, he's kind of like that uncle that always gives you shit, but you know he loves you. You know, that's how I felt. So how do you feel with your friendship with him? What's the back and forth like? Why do you guys just work aside from your love of music and comedy?
Well, because we both trust each other comedically. You know, we've done so many projects together over the years, and you know, if he feels really strongly about something creatively to do it that way, I'll always go, okay. If Jim feels that strongly, I respect that. Let's try it. And the same back from him, you know. So whether we're doing terrorizing telemarketers or our old Meet the Creeps hidden camera stuff or inside the NFL, it was always about like, yeah, we both respect each other as comics. We're both friends. I mean, we've been comedy partners over 20 years. I don't think we've ever had an argument. So, you know, it's not, I can't say we're like an old married couple, but, you know, we kind of are without the sex, you know, it just works, you know, it's really easy. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to, seeing him being down in Tampa with him, at Side Splitters. That's going to be a lot of fun. And, you know, we love gigging together too. It's always more fun to be on the road with your friends because, you know, we break each other's balls, we have a good time, and we like all the same stuff. So it makes it easy.
Would you say he's your greatest supporter, or is there another person that's really going out of their way, like Mom, or there's a manager. He spent $100,000 on a guy to get him out of a contract, and they've been like this ever since like 1984. You know, who would you say is, you know, part of that group of your biggest supporters?
Jim, definitely. You know, you know, he's always looked out for me. You know, he's obviously been doing comedy longer than me, but you know, he always took me under his wing. He's always looked out for me. And then, of course, when I started to get some traction on my own, I looked out for him. You know, that's it. You know, comedy and music can be very clicky sometimes, and to know you have an ally in the business is humongous. You know, it's a guy I know is not going to stab me in the back, because there's plenty of people who will. You know, but people are super competitive, as they should be. But I'm more of a you know, friendly competition kind of guy. It's like, you know, you know, we're all going for the same thing. You know, we're all comics. We all want to kill in front of an audience. I just, I want the shows to be great. And, Jim and I work great together. So, it's a good 1-2 punch.
And if you guys want to see an example of that metal show where they go to the Hard Rock in New York and they take people on a tour, you're gonna get some bust, gust, and laughs out of that. But man, tell me, I didn't know Tampa was such a big spot for comedy. I knew Philly was, I knew New York, the Jersey has its little spots, but Tampa, the longer I've visited and been down here, I'm realizing this is Mecca for comedy down south. So can you relay a story you've had down here that you remember? Because again, you've been all over the place. You have so many. But what's the time you were in Tampa? It was like, you know what? That was a little wild. I'm going to remember that.
No, well, those are the stories I can tell. So, but I think one of the reasons Tampa's sort of really become a hotspot for comedy is because of the comedy club down there called Side Splitters. It's the perfect size room. It's a great room. You can really rock it when you get it full of people there. And I talk to comics up here in Jersey, New York, and they all say, "Oh, I love Side Splitters. I can't wait to play there again." And so that guy gets, he gets, bigger comics who are maybe even too big for the room to come and do it just because they like it, and the crowds are great. So that's the other thing. They get great crowds in there, and he's built it so that the crowds are just coming anyway. Like our fans, of course, will all come. Every comedian's own fans will come, but people will just, well, we're going to Side Splitters because they know they're going to get a great show there. So, and that, the important thing too, for everybody is like, and I know a lot of people watching or listening to this are going to be rock fans, but I always say, if you get the packaging, if it's, whether it's Motorhead on my new one or Saxon on my last one or whatever it may be, what's on the inside is for everybody. I want everybody to be able to laugh at what's inside. You don't have to like hard rock or metal to enjoy what's on the inside. I'm always going to talk about music, of course, because it's such a big part of my life, but you don't have to, it's not a prerequisite for coming to see me. And so that's, when you go down to Tampa, you get, obviously you're going to get a great cross section of people, not only from Florida, but you're going to get a lot of people who moved down there from the North and from other parts of the country. So it's a great mix.
Indeed. With all the things you've done, I know you have another project coming up. You just wrapped up that Jamieson Show, 235 episodes. I think it was 5 Sports Hall of Famers and 5 Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, if I'm correct. I'm gonna need you to correct me.
12 Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, two Baseball Hall of Famers.
Still, man, look at what you're doing with your life. I'm talking to the guy down at the grocery store. Like, hey, how's your day? Can I have that apple, please?
I do that too.
With this new project coming up, I know you can't relate too many details, but how do you keep on coming up with something new? It's fascinating to see how you guys keep on reinventing yourselves, reinventing the wheel, even though it's like music. There's only so many notes, but you can create a plethora of content. So what's the next project really focusing on to as much you can relay?
Well, I think the next thing I'm working on with my buddy Keith Roth is something that'll combine all 3 worlds, comedy, rock, and sports. So, he and I are teaming up because, of course, the world needs another podcast. But I think we have a little bit of a different take. And, if you're if it's you're able to have me come back on again another time when it's up and running, we'll be able to tell people a little bit more about it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like kind of like AC/DC, like, it's kind of the same 5 chords, but my God, what they do with those 5 chords is amazing. So I stick to the stuff that I love and that I know. I mean, if someone asked me if I wanted to do that country show, hey, I got respect for country artists, but I wouldn't know what I was talking about, so I wouldn't be able to do it. So, I stick with the stuff that's just a part of me.
I see. So I'm gonna have a little trouble getting you on to rapping us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could be the, sort of the anti guy, or not even anti, because I'm not anti music in any way. I find it funny when, I've met I've met people over the years, and I go, so what kind of music do you like? And they'll go, oh, what I just put on whatever's on the radio, and I'm like, I could never be friends with this person. You know, it's I don't care what kind of music you like. You gotta have a passion for music, or we're not gonna have, we're not gonna be able to gel together, So that's what I always say. Like, I don't care my girlfriend loves country music, and that's cool. And you like a little bit of everything, which is great too. I have a one-track mind. It's just the way I am. But I have love for all kinds of music. So, anybody who can make a living in it, especially, or even if you just do it for a hobby, if you get the love out of it and the joy that I still do, luckily, then stick with what makes you happy. That's the most important thing. Remember, jump and the net will appear.
I always end these with the most important question. Sometimes they're funny. Doyle gave me the most hilarious response when I asked it. And then sometimes they're serious, like when Ted Aguilar sat down with me. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Like what I was mentioning before, my dad just tell me, like, whatever job you take, you do it 100%. You don't half-ass it. That still runs through my mind, because people ask me all the time about, my parents come to see me perform, and, they got to hear about me crapping my pants on a date, and masturbation and all this crazy stuff that's going on in my life that, I don't necessarily always share with them, when we're having dinner together, but they respect that when I go on stage, I give 100%. I don't hold anything back. And my dad would be disappointed if I did, they'd rather be a little bit embarrassed by some of the things that I'm saying than for me not to go up there and give it all that I have. And that's how I do every show. Every show is 100%. There's 10 people, 1,000 people, 100 people. It does not matter. I give 100%. And that comes, like I said, from the blue collar, growing up. You get your lunch pail, you put on your hard hat, you get your ass to work, you bust your ass. If you don't like the job, you never have to do it again. But if you accept something, you do it.
And those are wise words, and words that we live by. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Don. Don. Listen to the D-O-N, Don. Because he is an actual Don. That's a story in itself. Don Jamieson, No Sleep Til McSorley's out now. You can get physical copies. You can get vinyl. Give it a little bit of time. But if you're looking for Don and to see him perform, which, again, I reiterate, Side Splitters Comedy Club, May 3 and 4 in Tampa. Guys, go to Facebook, Don Jamieson. You can go to X, the real Don Jamieson. You can go to his website, Don Jamieson, and my personal famous. Sorry, I'm spewing up words because I'm so excited. The adrenaline is kicking. Don Jamieson official at Instagram. Guys, before I let him go, I really want to stress a sincere thank you, sir. It's been 2 years in the making. You were a man of your word when I asked you for the opportunity, and I can't express how grateful I am for you giving me one of the greatest concert experiences of my life, sir. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Ninja, this has been a real pleasure, man. You're a pro, dude. I mean, you did your homework, and I appreciate all the good things that you said, and I appreciate you letting me come on and plug my new stuff, man. So thank you very much.
Everybody else, remember, jump and the net will appear. Be smart, be mindful, rock on. And as always, Ninja out.
This is Don Jamieson, and he tells bloody jokes.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even know you guys were here. This is absolutely a dream come true.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.